Everyone hits a bump in the road. What do you do with it? Be inspired as we explore the ways people experience, navigate, and manage the ups and downs and twists and turns in this road trip called life. Welcome to another episode of Bump in the Road. The basic podcast is always free. We also have a premium subscription called Bump 2 that lets you listen in on extended behind-the-scenes conversations with our guests. Check it out at www.bumpintheroad.us. Peter Lloyd was living a normal life until he fell at work, injuring his left leg. This set off a series of incidents that eventually led to a diagnosis of osteosarcoma. Along the way, he lost his job and his home, and eventually it was decided to amputate his leg. Pete's Bump in the Road is a story of perseverance and self-determination that will inspire you. Hi, today on Bump in the Road, I'd like to welcome Pete Lloyd. Pete, if you would, tell us a little bit about your story.
Okay, hi, thanks, Pat, for the invite onto this. It started in 2007, my actual journey on this bump in the road. I fell over at work and hit my left leg fairly hard, pulling a pallet truck into a freezer and slipped over in the freezer. And it started from there. I had an X-ray, which showed a mass in my femur. They weren't sure what it was at that particular time. So I had a choice to go to have an MRI. So I had an MRI scan, and that showed up quite a big mass in my left femur, right up at the very top. And the doctor who did the MRI scan sent me down to the Royal Orthopaedic in Birmingham, and I had a biopsy, and it turned out to be benign. It was classed as something called fibrous dysplasia, which is just like it's a metabolic bone disease. So completely non-cancerous, absolutely, just carry on, see how you go on with a bit of physio. So I did physio for 6 months, and it didn't get any better. Back down to Birmingham, and they tried injecting me with something that's called a bisphosphonate. And that's normally something that they use for osteoporosis and whatnot. It stops bone degradation and stops it breaking down. And that didn't work. And 6 months later, I tried, after more physiotherapy and everything, I eventually was in so much pain. I said to him, just, you've got to do something. Help me out. I'm in pain. So they scraped the bone out. It's called a curettage. And that was in 2008.
Oh, that sounds awful. Now, how old were you when all this was going on?
Well, I was 25.
Wow.
So yeah, I was 25 when it was all going on. I'm newly married as well, and a new baby was born in the March, so I fell over in the April. My firstborn was born in March 2007, and I fell over in the April 2007. So everything kind of happened at once. And then I'd had the curettage, and that still came back as benign, so still non-cancerous and absolutely fine. And carry on with a little bit of physio, let the bone heal, and we'll see how you go on. And Christmas 2008, everything looked good, apart from like a peanut-sized bit left to heal in my femur. So I was told, get fit, go back to work, carry on life as normal. So joined a gym in the January 2009. Went back to work in the March 2009, ran Manchester 10K in May 2009.
Wow.
And then felt a bit of a twinge in my leg in the September 2009. So rang up the hospital again and said, I've felt a bit of a twinge, nothing, serious, nothing that I was concerned about, but can I bring my appointment forward? So they said, yeah. So I went down in the November. I was due to go down in the December. I went down in the November 2009. And I wasn't allowed to work again. I was signed off work again. Because I had whatever was going on had eaten away at the bone again, and I was left with just the cortex of the bone, the outer shell. So it was completely hollow. So back on crutches, and I was operated again in the December 2009. So that's 2008 an operation, 2009 an operation, and then in 2010 the operation from 2009 didn't work, so I had yet another operation. And then at the end of 2010, I was in absolute agony, and just I'd previous operations not worked, and then they put in a bone graft. So I had a dynamic hip screw put in, and either side of the hip screw was it was called an allograft, which is a cadaver bone, which is somebody else's bone.
Mm-hmm.
So that was packed either side of the hip screw to keep it in place. And everything looked okay on the x-ray at Christmas 2010, but I was still in pain. In February 2011, I was having an x-ray down in Birmingham again because I was still in pain. And I just said, there's got to be something going on. I am in absolute agony. This can't be right. And just a corner of the bone graft had been eaten away. Just a tiny, tiny little bit of the corner. And they were just like, no, that's not right. That's something. There's something there. So we'll do what's known as limb salvage. So that was done in the April 2011. I was 29.
What is limb salvage?
Limb salvage it's where they put a metallic bone in.
Oh,
So
okay.
instead of an amputation, it's an internal prosthesis. So where you have like a false knee or a false hip, that's an internal prosthesis. But they are able to do it for the longer bones in the body, so you can have like a metal femur or a metal tibia and things like that. So I had the top part of my femur to about 3 inches above my knee replaced with a metal replacement, and then 3 weeks later, I got the phone call to say that it was a high-grade osteosarcoma. So from it being benign fibrous dysplasia for the 4 years from 2007, 8, 9, 10, and then in 2011 to it being a high-grade bone cancer, was a bit of a shock, really, because it's not what I expected, but it was what I expected at the same point in time because it had been going on for so long. So yeah, we just got that diagnosis, and I remember it quite well because we were driving through Manchester on the way back from a shopping trip. My kids needed the toilet. The phone went, so we were like, right, okay, we'll pull into Tesco, and the kids can use the toilet. I'll take the phone. It's fine. And I got told in the car. So yeah, that was, and then Kate got in the car, which is my wife. And by this time, I got 2 young children. So when I fell over, I got a newborn who was a month old. My second child was born in 2009. So now I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I've just had a high-grade cancer diagnosis. And basically, I was told, that's it. I've got an appointment at the Christie in Manchester, which is our local cancer hospital, specialist cancer hospital. And you'll start all your tests and everything there and then. In sort of like a week, you start all your tests. You get your liver function, your heart function, bone density scan, all of that, your PET scans. So I had all them done, and then started my chemotherapy on the 25th of May. So
Wow. I can't even imagine getting told like that while you're driving or, as you pulled over. I had a similar experience actually, and
Mm.
it just absolutely takes the wind out of you. It's everything just stops.
Yeah, it's like a gut punch, isn't it?
Yeah.
It does. It completely kind of knocks you for six. But because I'd been ill for so long, it it wasn't as much as a guttural punch as I thought it would be. It was still harsh, but it was almost like it was expected, and it was always hanging over because you know what you do. You go on Google and you search things and you find out that fibrous dysplasia can turn cancerous in 0.001% of all cases. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to be that 0.01%. I'm going to be that, aren't I? And everyone's going, no, 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 it's fine. My doctor was saying no. It's very, very rare. You don't need to worry about it. But mine was, and it did. So yeah,
And you were a little old for that diagnosis, weren't you? Isn't it usually in younger
yeah,
people?
yeah, absolutely. So it's normally between, I think there's age between 0 and 14. It's more prevalent.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it's something like 45% of the cases or something like that. There are a lot more in children than there are in adults and older adults. Um, so yeah, it was a case of, well, what do we do? So um, I've got two young children, newly married, and it was a case of, well, right, we've got to do this. We've got no two ways around it. It's happening. And the consultation at the Christie was basically, this is what's going to happen. Without chemotherapy, you've got a 20% chance of survival. With chemotherapy, that goes up to 70%. And I was like, right, well, he says, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? I'll have the chemotherapy. And it was at that point where I don't know whether reality hit or not. I'm not quite sure. It was because I got my wife and my mum wanted to come as well, so I got my mum at the hospital, and it hurt my mum a lot, and I can't, I don't think about that. I don't process that because I don't allow that to cloud my decision. Um, my immediate thought was, well, I've got to survive this for my family. Um, and it was just a case of, well, I'm going to get my head down and I'm going to treat it like a job. And I became very, very selfish. I'd gone through all the tests, all the scans, and I sat down with the registrar and we worked through my chemotherapy to the letter. We dotted every I and crossed every single T. I knew what time bags were. I knew what dose I was having, when I was having it, what day I was having it, who would be administrating it. I got to know all the nurses, all the doctors, the registrars, because I was going to be in that hospital for a long time. I needed to know who was looking after me. And I didn't want the kids or my wife to be part of that. I didn't want them to come into the hospital to see me poorly. And I didn't want them to come into the hospital during treatment. They could drop me off at the start and they could pick me up at the finish, but they weren't to come during. And that was pretty much blanket for everybody. I don't do visitors at hospitals. I don't like putting on a face, and if somebody's at the side of your bed and you just want to go to sleep, you can just go to sleep without somebody commenting and say, oh, you're a bit tired.
Well, it's too hard. What happens is that you end up having to manage their emotional state when you have more than enough on your own plate.
Exactly. And you don't want to be explaining every niggle and every ache and pain all the time. And it's like, no, it's fine. I've got an ache in my side or I've got an ache here. It's fine. I'm adjusting. I don't want you to mess about with my pillows or anything. Just leave me be. So yeah, I did that, but I made friends with everybody on the ward. I comforted people if they didn't have family and friends, and that helped me process what I was going through, and it helped the nurses as well because I'd get everybody on the ward. chatting and talking, because that's just, it's who I am. I'm not quiet. And it just, it was just a case of getting through it as best I could. And when I was at home, it was very hard at home because my wife kept everything as normal as possible, and she, kept everything as much as she could as normal for the kids as well. And she wouldn't let me see how much she was struggling to keep everything together, because she wanted it to be as normal as possible for me, and she didn't need me having any additional stress of her not coping. But that's where, her mum and dad and my mum, and my cousin and my uncles and whatnot all came together, and they helped with the kids. And that was brilliant, at 2 o'clock in the morning when my temperature spiked and I got sepsis, or I'd gone in with an infected line, or I needed blood, or I needed platelets. And it just happens. You can plan a day out and you can get 500 yards up the road in the car, all the colour drains from you, and you go, I need to go home, or can you take me to the hospital? And that was the reality.
Yeah, or you're just so tired all of a sudden, out of the blue, you cannot put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, well, I've had a bit of a day like that today, to be honest. It still affects me now, but not as much as it used to, because you could quite literally drop, couldn't you? When.
No, I'm totally with you. I have been there. It is impossible to explain to somebody who hasn't been through it. It's not like any normal fatigue.
No, it's not a tiredness that you can just get over with a couple of hours sleep or a cup of coffee. It's something that it's almost like your body shuts down to a certain extent, and it needs rebooting somehow, but sleep doesn't reboot it. It's.
Was the chemo successful?
The chemo was very successful, yes. So I had what's known as the MAP regime, which is methotrexate, doxorubicin, and cisplatin. And it's high dose methotrexate, high dose cisplatin, high dose doxorubicin, and they do it on cycles. So I started in May and I finished in January 2012. So I was 30 in February 2012. And for my 30th birthday, we actually spent it in Centre Parks as a family to start. This is the end of my chemotherapy. This is us getting away. This is us starting again. This is us as a family now. This is our time. And then the next month, I had a hip replacement. So I'd gone 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, and I thought I got away with operations. And then 2012, I had a hip replacement. So, because what I'd done is, by being fit and healthy during my chemotherapy, by cycling, I'd actually borne a hole through my acetabulum, which is your hip socket.
Wow.
So with the limb salvage was the top of my femur and all the way down, I'd actually bore a hole through my hip. So yeah, I had a hip replacement in 2012, and that's where, unfortunately, there was another bump in the road where it didn't quite go to plan. The operation was fine. Everything healed okay, but my muscles just weren't strong enough. I didn't have any stability in my hip, and every time I walked, it'd slightly dislocate. It would click, and it would send a sharp shooting pain up my back. And I was still walking with a stick. My leg was exceptionally tender on the operated side. But, I'd got the kids, I finished my chemo, all clear, plow ahead, let's go for it. Let's go, recover from the operation. Let's just, think about the future. So, in no operations 2013, thankfully. And I went back to work in 2014, still with a walking stick and still using crutches every now and then. And my third child So we were told that I would never have children again. But because we've already got the two, we were like, no, it's fine. You don't need to freeze anything. We're blessed. If anything happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's fine. And my third child was born in 2014. So we'd now got 3 children, and I was at work and everything was going okay. And to fast forward to 2017, I threw a ball for my eldest son in the back garden, and everything just collapsed. My leg gave way and I ended up on the floor. And I was like, I'm not having another operation. I don't want any more operations. I've had enough. I've gone through everything I've gone through. My leg isn't working. I want the whole thing taken off. I don't want it.
What did the doctors say?
No.
Yeah.
They told me no. It's not going to happen. You're not going to have an amputation. It will, it will, it'll make you so disabled you won't be able to do anything, basically. And I was like, to be honest, I just want the pain to go away. I don't want this pain anymore. And, I'm dragging around a leg that's not doing anything. I can't use it for anything. I mean, when I'm at the gym, I could push 210 kilos with my right leg, and I'm struggling to push 5 with my left. It just doesn't work. And they were like, "Oh, right, well, we'll see you in 3 months, and we'll see how your mindset is then." So I was like, right, well, it won't change. And they were like, well, we'll see. So again, 3 months down, I was like, no, I really want the operation. I want it. I want it taken off. And he said, well, we don't want to do it because clinically we can't see any reason to. There is no clinical reason. The wound's healed fine. Your leg is fine. The prosthesis is fine. Your hip's
But the
fine.
pain is through the roof.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's stopping me from doing things, and I don't trust it.
Yeah.
I can't stand up for long periods of time. I can't walk for any length of time because of the pain and the clicking and the clunking in my hip and up my back. So the only way that they'd agree for me to have it done was to see a pain specialist, a psychotherapist, the doctor at the limb centre who'd be looking after me after my amputation, my prosthetist who would be making the socket, what type of socket I'd be having for my level of amputation, which is a hip disarticulation. And then if I could meet up with a former patient. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do everything. Absolutely, I'll do everything. Went and saw a pain specialist, and he was like, nope, I think the best thing for you is to have your leg taken off. I was like, okay.
Okay, one person on your side, yay.
Well, exactly, one person on my side. So the limb centre doctor, he was like, if we could take the pain away, if we could take that pain away, what would you do? I said, I'd still want it taken off because I can't trust that leg. I hate it. I've got all this emotion attached to my leg and I physically hate it. And he was like, right, okay, I'll send a letter of recommendation that it's, in your best interest. So I saw a psychotherapist as well, and she was like, are you absolutely sure? And I was like, yes. So there's 3 people on my side. So I'm a prosthetist, and she's one of the leading prosthetists in the UK who make hip disarticulation sockets. And she was like, I'll make you the best socket I can possibly make, and we'll get you up walking. So that's 4 people on my side. And then I saw a patient at the limb centre. She brought in a lady who, had had an amputation at the age of 15, and she brought up 3 boys on her own, and she was now 75. And she was like, I don't see myself as disabled. It's not stopped me bringing up my lads. It's not stopped me from doing anything. So it's your choice, it's your decision. I can't tell you what to do. I can just say that my life has been fine. So I was like, right, okay, that's everybody in agreement with me. Went back down to Birmingham, took my wife with me, and I was like, I've done everything you've asked. I've done absolutely everything. I've got the letters. I've got, everyone on my side. I am 100% sure I want this amputation because I want my life back. I want to be able to play with my kids without pain. I don't want them to fear running into me or knocking my leg or doing anything that will hurt me. And I want to be able to go out, and I want to be able to walk and hold my wife's hand rather than having to use walking sticks or crutches or anything like that. And he said, well, and it took my actual wife to break down and cry for him to say, he wants it doing and it's the best thing, and this is what's going to happen. So they agreed to do it. And a couple of weeks passed and I'd not heard anything. And I was like, it's not going, it's not on I'm not on their list. I've been missed off their list for operation. So I rang up and said, I'm just checking to make sure I'm on the list. And she went, no, you are now. So I knew that was the final test that I had to pass before having it.
So this is 10 years, right? Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
My gosh.
Yeah. So, and I've learned to walk every single year since near, and I didn't want to have to do it again. I was tired. I was getting on. I'm now, I'm 38 now. I was amputated 3 years ago in 2017. And I wanted to be able to be young enough and fit enough to just try anything and everything and get into something and do something. And my kids now are 13, 11 and 6. And I want them to have a dad that can do stuff and go out with them and spend days with them and play with them and not just, have their days cut short because I'm in pain or because I can't go out and do that. And it was always on the back of my mind is that, I'm doing it as much as I am for me, but I'm doing it for them as well. And when I went down to have the operation, the following day after, I was like, they've not done it, because I didn't feel any different. I was just, numb from the waist down because of the spinal block and stuff. And I was like, I don't feel any different. They've not taken it. And when I looked down, it was like, oh, they have. I was like, yes. But apparently my wife's first words were, what the hell have they done to you? Where's your leg? Sort of thing. Because, it did take her a bit by surprise because I was there and I've got the one leg. But it didn't take long to come round to the fact that, yes, I was one-legged. And it was just the day after when the doctors were coming round on the ward, and he says to me, he says, how are you feeling? I says, I'm absolutely fine. I said, I'm absolutely fine. He says, still the right decision? I said, oh, absolutely. And to this day, it is still the best decision out of all of my treatment that I've ever made.
Is your life back to what you would consider normal? I mean, can you do the things you want to do now?
Is my life normal? No. I decided that I'd start doing something to regain some kind of fitness. And in 2018, I started wheelchair racing. Because I pinky promised a friend in a pub that I'd do a Manchester Marathon. Hadn't a clue on how to do it because I'd not even got my prosthetic really at the time. Not got a proper wheelchair to do it in, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll do the marathon if you do it." And she was like, "Yeah, we'll do it." So started wheelchair racing, and that is now like my full-time thing that I do. And I race for the Bone Cancer Research Trust, which I'm a patient ambassador for, and I race at Stockport Wheelchair Racing, which I'm a trustee of. So yeah, everything that I do now is, aimed at helping bone cancer patients disabled people get back into sport, really, and just being that support that wasn't really there for me when I was going through it all, and being able to have those candid discussions with, and the taboo conversations about the aches and pains, and when you feel a bit blocked up because of your chemotherapy and things like that. And it just, I just wanted to be that person that anybody could come to, and being a dad and having a family and whatnot as well, it really helped sort of like other parents with their children, or if it was a child going through it with a parent and stuff. And it just helps to talk, and I'm a massive advocate for help and asking for help. And if there's help out there and support out there, access it, tap into it, because even if you don't need it now, in the future, you've still got that resource.
And you're in a difficult situation too as a young adult going through all this. You don't
Yeah.
have peers that are having any similar experiences.
No, and you're either on a ward with normal orthopedic patients just having regular knee replacements or hip replacements, or you're on the orthopedic oncology ward, and it's there's no middle ground. There's no middle ground in it, and it just, you're either old or young. there's no middle. But it's things like when I was in Birmingham, and I'd gone down for like my limb salvage, I think it was, if I remember rightly. Rocky, there was a Rocky Fest on TV or something like that. So we invited most of the ward round to our side of the ward, and we ordered pizzas in, and we got the nurses in and everything as well. And it's things like that, because we had, I like to have a laugh in the hospital. I like to kind of bring everyone together and lighten a little bit of the load. And just having a pizza night watching the TV did so much for so many people. It was brilliant. It really was. And it's things like that that don't actually take that much planning, but mean a lot to so many people. And it just makes stays better. And yeah, just
Is there wisdom to come out of this experience?
ask for help. If you are struggling, even if you're not struggling, to be honest, it's tapping into the charities that can help. It's tapping into, finding patient advocates, finding patient ambassadors, finding the charities that, are asking for people to come and try stuff. And it is just ask for help, and don't fear the unknown, really, because the unknown can be amazing. It's, and just take that leap of faith every now and then, and it's, the world opens up a little bit more. That's basically it, really. It's the asking for help, really. Don't struggle, don't do it alone.
One question I almost always ask, and I'm really hesitant to ask it, but if here it goes.
Go for it.
If you could rewrite your story, would you?
No,
Wow. Why?
because where I am now is where I'm meant to be. If I rewrote it, I wouldn't have my kids. I wouldn't have what I've got now. I wouldn't have the job I've got now. I wouldn't be in the role I'm in now. I wouldn't be I wouldn't have the connections and everything that I have now. And I am so grateful to all of my support, to the Bone Cancer Research Trust, to Stockport Wheelchair Racing, to my family, to my friends, to every last little bit of support that has got me to where I am. Because now, I can start paying them back. And I pay them back by doing the things that make normal life seem normal, if that's right. I do things, I enjoy doing things, I enjoy adventure, I enjoy, just being a dad and a husband, and, the daily trip to school and dropping them off, the little things that you take for granted. I love cutting the grass. And it's, I'm out hopping on my front lawn, pushing the lawnmower in front of me. People drive past and, they don't think anything of it because I've done it all the way through. And it's the little normal things and that make the biggest difference. And yeah, I really honestly wouldn't change a thing.
Wow. That's just an amazing story. 10 years of going through this is almost beyond comprehension.
Yeah, and everything was attached to my leg. Honestly, everything was attached to my leg. All the anger, the frustration, the fear. I posted a post on Facebook when I'd had my amputation. It was "This is my scar," and it's just a picture of my residual part of my stump with my scar, and it's the tiniest, thinnest, lightest scar I have ever had throughout all of my operations. But that tiniest, little, thinnest scar is 10 years of hurt, pain, frustration, just everything. And it was all gone. One operation, it just took it all, and I could then rebuild myself. And and that's credit to everyone around me that helped me be able to rebuild myself.
Thank you for joining us today. I hope you found something in today's podcast that inspires you along your own life's path, because sometimes a bump in the road is actually a portal into a more conscious and meaningful life. You can subscribe to our free podcast at www.bumpintheroad.us or become a premium member to hear the full conversation. Just go to www.bumpintheroad.us for more information and to sign up.